Hey everybody, and welcome back to Ready Steady Play. Today I'm going to be taking you through Windmill Valley. This is a competitive Euro game for 1 to 4 players, designed by Danny Garcia and published by Board and Dice, who kindly provided this review copy for us to check out here on the show. I'll give you a brief overview of the rules and how the game works, and then I'll give you some of my thoughts and opinions after playing the game. So here you can see a 2-player game of Windmill Valley set up and ready to begin play. In Windmill Valley, we are tulip farmers, and we have our own little tulip farms that we'll look at in a bit more detail later on. We've got up here what is called the calendar, and down here we've got water wheels that manage water into the valley where we grow the tulips. And this is the core novelty of the game. On your turn, you're going to be taking actions that determine how fast this will turn, and you'll be able to spend these little gear tokens to adjust that as well, to a minimum of 1 step and a maximum of 4 steps, with 1 step being 1 rotation between the red tokens. Once this is complete, you'll be able to choose either this action or this action to do. Now, I'll take you through a brief overview of what all of these different actions do over here, but over the course of the game, you'll be able to buy these different tiers of upgrades and slot them into an area on your windmill. So the windmill action, shown here on your player board, allows you to take a windmill from your area here and place it onto a junction stepping out of this central area, the marketplace. When you play a windmill down, you'll have to pay any cost shown, and you must also be able to draw a line back to the center. So there's an area of sort of building out and networking different windmills, and you can pass through your opponent's windmill, but they'll get a victory point every time you do. You're then going to gain benefits shown adjacent to that windmill. We can see here different points multipliers, which are going to increase as you remove windmills from your player board. If you want to get the big multiplier for the black tulips, you must place all 3 of the windmills here. We already discussed the upgrade your gears action, which comes from this marketplace up here. And then over here, you've got the helpers action. That's indicated on your player board by the contract symbol. Everyone starts with a helper slotted into the top of their player board that gives them a passive benefit. When you hire a new helper, you can choose. You can put it here in the top of your player board, which immediately awards you some points. You can leave their face showing if you like, and gives you a new passive ongoing benefit. You can also choose to slot it down here, where it becomes an endgame scoring bonus that applies only to you. The next action you can take is foreign trade. So when we do foreign trade, this is telling us we're going to put tulips down in order to activate the action shown here. So you pop a tulip down here, and then you get to do the thing on either side of it. And that could be gain 3 victory points, or indeed it could be a whole nother action, like take a helper and put it on your player board. The next action is this marketplace around the middle. And when you take this action, your token's going to be able to move around these different areas and gain benefits shown below. In the marketplace, when you advance to a new area, you're going to be able to gain benefits based on the number of other pieces there. And here in this 2-player game, we've got these neutral pieces which can be manipulated up here as well. Now you might be asking, what is all of this in service of? Well, we're trying to get points in this game. Of course, we want to have the most victory points to win. The catch is that points come from everywhere. Everything is giving you points all the time. A good score in this game is probably in the region of 200 victory points. And in the last 2-player game I played of this, we scored close to that many. So you've seen all the different areas of the main game board here, and you're going to be triggering those actions by rotating your water wheel. And as we've seen, you might take an action which has a knock-on effect that lets you take another action over there. And this game is very much in the Danny Garcia School of Game Design, where the actions create chain reactions. And at the core of that, or at least partly at the core of that, is your tulip bed down here. Players are going to collect different colored tulips down here in their storage area, and then when they're able to place tulips, they'll slide them up here into the 4 different rows shown. And this is the action here that allows them to plant tulips. this action can come from all over the place, including your player board, the marketplace, and the calendar. This up here is the scoring criteria. This one wants you to have all 4 rows in different colors. And over here, you can see that it wants at least 7 to be the same color within that row. And then, of course, we'll be able to increase our score by placing the windmills, which is going to give us score multipliers at the end of the game for the different colored tulips that we've managed to put out here in our bed. Now, you can also see, for example, here another chain where there is an action here. If you cover it up, that lets you plant another tulip, which could go here. Of course, I would have to have these tulips in my storage area. I can't just take them from the supply. So there's a logistical element I'm bypassing here for the purposes of demonstration, but you can see all of these different actions that you will want to be triggering by putting out tulips and trying to gain the opportunity for that. Now, at the heart of the game is this track here. This is the one thing that you really have to be mindful of. This is your money track. You can't go over 9, but you can definitely go down to 0, but you can't go into debt. Everything in this game costs money. Wherever you see the money symbol with red, that is an amount you have to pay. Over here, we can see during the water flow section of your player's turn, you'll be paying money to adjust this as well. So you'll get victory points and pay money if you want to change the speed at which your water wheel will adjust. This also gives you these effects here. Those effects we just saw adjust this track here, moving this brown cube up. That is water filling up into the reservoir in the valley. When we see this symbol here, that means that water is let out of the valley and the cube can be dropped back down. This allows us to take money or victory points if we've adjusted the water. On the box, the game says 45 to 90 minutes. I reckon 2 players who are across it, who've played before, could probably get it done in 90 minutes. I'd be very surprised if they finished in 45 minutes. We played at 4 players and it took closer to 2 hours to play. At a lower player count, it was done a lot faster. Now, the reason I bang on about the money is because that's a really core element of the game. This is a combo game. It's combos shooting off, triggering things just one after the other. A turn in this game looks a lot like I'm going to go to the marketplace, I'm going to pay a guilder, and that's going to allow me to move a disc along here, and then my disc is going to follow up, and then I'm going to get these tulips, and I'm going to be able to plant these tulips. So I'm going to plant some tulips out here on my player board as a result of that, and then that's going to give me a extra development action. So I'm going to take one of these over here as well, and that's going to slot in here. But honestly, that wasn't even a very good example. The level of combos in this game can be pretty extreme. And so if you're a player that struggles to track what's going on, or a player who likes to roll back their turn and try different things, you might struggle a bit in this just because there's so many potential links to set up. If you're the kind of player that really likes that sort of thing, you might find a lot of stuff to enjoy here, just setting up all the dominoes and knocking them all down. And honestly, it doesn't even take that many turns to set up. It doesn't really take any at all. Every turn you'll find opportunities to just knock down row after row of domino, provided you don't run out of money. Everything costs money in this game. Whether you want the more powerful action upgrades for your wheel, the helpers are actually free to take, but it costs coins to reset them. They don't have an immediate benefit. Additionally, it is free to go out here, but this typically unlocks additional actions that might cost money. This costs money. So if you want to adjust the speed of the water wheel, you can always drop it down, but if you want to speed it up, you're going to have to pay money. If you want to play a windmill, almost all of the windmill spaces cost money. Wherever you see the market, that typically costs money. That action just has a cost on it that almost always comes up and costs money. So if you run out of guilders, you'll have a really bad time. And so you want to figure out a way to get money. And one of the best ways to do that is through tiles like this. This tile here straight up gives you money, but also has this little plus symbol. That means when it's lined up, you're going to be able to do both actions shown on the water wheel. That's awesome. Now what you'll notice here is that currently I'm going to do a windmill action and get the 2 guilder, and I can do it in any order. As the wheel rotates, though, the next time that 2 coins comes about, oh dear, it's with something else, because the wheels slowly desynchronize over the course of the game. So there's no sort of long-term comboing of these positions with these positions because they will desynchronize. However, this plus sign, really important. So when I played the 4 players version of this game, we had one player who's quite across the rules and a couple of players who didn't pick up on the rules as quickly. And because there are competitive marketplaces for the upgrade tokens, and those in particular, we had players who were running out of guilders and getting stuck. And those players didn't have a good time. If you don't have a way to get money, the only real way to get money is to trigger this water release action that comes as a default on the smaller cog, which lets you move this token down. And for every step it moves down, you're going to get some benefits up here, which includes money or points. Obviously, it's a lot higher up here at the top of the track, and down here it's just straight money. You can never be unable to take an action because it does just loop around this last spot here, earning you a coin every time it loops. But it is not a great way to make money, and that's your whole turn if you decide to take this action on this water wheel, because obviously you can only do 2, and this is just moved down 2 steps. Once you start upgrading this water wheel, maybe you'll be able to release the water and do more. But what I found in that 4-player game was that the player who'd developed their wheels earlier and was really across the money, it really snowballed and they became a runaway leader who was very, very difficult to catch, because whenever any good tokens came out into these marketplaces, that player would be able to grab them before the other players could access them. Or the other players would get them, but then they wouldn't, it wouldn't make enough of a difference to their whole life because they'd sort of trigger it once and then have to wait for the wheel to rotate again in order to access that benefit. You can see here adjusting the wheel costs money, and if you don't have any money, you have a lot less agency over how fast the wheel moves. So if you like this sort of action comboing thing, then you're going to find a lot to love here. And in the 2-player game I played, it was a lot closer, with both of us scoring close to or in excess of 200 points and falling within a margin of about 10 points of one another. So that was a really enjoyable and exciting game where we were comboing all these things and sort of looking for different ways to get these sort of bonanzas. Additionally, we were working on different areas of the board, with one player focusing a lot on foreign trade, while I was focusing a lot on the marketplace action and had ways to access that more cheaply and effectively. And both of us trying to build our windmill networks out a bit and playing off of each other. That was a really fun and enjoyable experience. The 4-player game was clearly not very much fun for 2 of the players at the table, who were really struggling to get their engines sort of up and working, and would sort of splutter into a cool combo every so often, but would have a lot of downtime between turns where they were waiting for everyone else to play out their cool combos. And then when it got round to that player, they would have to simply release water from the reservoir to earn a bit of money. And by the time they got their finances back in order, all the tiles they wanted from the marketplace were gone, and they had to spend their money just to refresh the marketplace because it was filled with all the duds that no one wanted. So I think if you're looking for sort of a pleasant combo-y experience, there's of course passive player powers to develop up here on the top of the helpers. There's also the endgame scoring conditions you can develop on the bottom here. Additionally, one thing I really like is the player agency around the ending of the game, which comes from how many times you spun the water wheel, which moves you along the calendar. So I really like when there's player agency over the game length, even if it's not sort of a directly highly strategic thing, but just sort of some side effect of what you've been doing, I still think that's really fun. So there's a lot to like here in Windmill Valley. I really wouldn't recommend it at 4. I haven't tried it at 3 or 1, so I can't really speak to the solo game or the 3-player game. I think it would probably be all right at 3 players, and at 2 players, perfectly enjoyable. I'm not sure it's going to stick around in my collection just because I have an enormous number of games, and the novelty of the water wheels is really fun, and I really like it. But for me, I've seen players falling behind in this and really struggling to catch up, and the game not offering those players a lot of tools to sort of stay competitive, which is a real deal breaker for me in this sort of puzzle. It always feels like there's something to do. So if that's the sort of thing you like in this kind of game, then you're going to feel like you've always got something productive you can do to earn points and do well at the game, which is great. Personally, I like a little bit more player interaction, which I'm kind of using as a term really for emotional highs and lows. You know, I want a little bit more of a game that grabs me and gets me invested. This is more of a puzzle here, where a lot of the player interaction just comes from access to that marketplace. And I do think that the guilders actually can be a little bit of a trap if you're not very conscious that you need to be paying attention to those. So this is a fair warning. I think if you get the chance to play this game, if you get the chance to, or if the comboing sounds exciting to you and you really like the idea of these modifiable water wheels and upgrading your actions down here, which, you know, is a really fun novelty, then I would caution you, just make sure you have some way to get money. And if you see these little action upgrade tokens with the plus symbols coming out, definitely investigate them because they can be massive. The other thing is that there's a lot of iconography in the game. Most of it becomes pretty second nature quite quickly, but you'll probably be looking up a lot of the passive benefits of the helper cards and the effects of these action tokens quite quickly as well. Some of them are very apparent, others require the decoder in the rulebook to look up. The final thing I'd say is that it is a bit of a table hog. The main board is huge, and you need a little bit of space for your player boards, not too much. But if table space is a very big concern, you might find this takes up a little bit too much space. But it does have a big, beautiful board with lots of bright, vibrant colors, so you certainly can't accuse this of being a beige trading in the Mediterranean Euro. There's also a lot of points scoring during the game. You're getting at least 50% of your score during the game, I think. So there's quite a lot of positive feedback, provided you're keeping up with the other players, provided you're staying competitive. Of course, if you are falling behind, that can also become quite apparent, which can be a little bit demoralizing for players who are not super across this sort of thing. It's not heavy. It's definitely middleweight, but I reckon it's sort of hobby plus, some familiarity with the hobby and action comboing, looking for those sort of knock-on actions to really be able to optimize your situation. The game really demands that from you. So there you go. That's a little insight into Windmill Valley. I hope you found this helpful. I think if you like games like Tilitum, if you like games like Lacrimosa, if you liked games like Rajas of the Ganges, then I think you'll find, that this sort of slots into your wheelhouse and you should give it a try if you can. If you haven't tried any of those other games, I prefer those, any of those. So certainly give those a try if you can. And then if you're still hungry for more, Windmill Valley will be waiting for you. Thanks everyone so much for spending your time checking out the review, and I'll see you all in the next one.